So, we've had some questions over the last little while about fuel tanks, and do you need a fuel tank on the back to ice race? The short answer is no. This tank has a bit of a story, so it's a bit of a long answer to explain why no, but let me walk you through it. In about 2006 and 7, we started getting back into ice racing, and one of the buddies of mine that I was racing with had a Polaris Predator. And this is back when you had regular 6-hour races all over Alberta. It was a lot of fun, but we didn't win a single race. And we were convinced that if we could race longer, we could maybe win a race. What we didn't admit was that everybody was just better riders than us. So we started talking about getting a better quad and making it faster. Polaris Outlaw 525. This would have been 2009 when we bought this bad boy. And the answer we thought was, well, we made the quad as fast as we could, 525 KTM engine. This thing had tons of torque, but we thought our secret weapon was this flashy tank on the back. So I built this tank specifically for the back of the 525. And at the time we figured out that if we held an extra 16 liters of fuel, we could race for 2 hours straight and beat these guys that were racing with the new 450s and the 425 two-strokes, the souped-up 250Rs. So here's the picture of the back of the 525 with the tank installed. It looks pretty shiny here. This quad was quite the machine, but the way the tank worked really well on it is the fact that the independent rear suspension means this quad didn't have a rear swing arm like you see on a regular sport quad, so it could handle the weight of the tank. The problem with this quad was, even though we filled that tank full of fuel, I don't think we ever once drained it because this quad had too much Polaris DNA in it and it never once finished a race. This thing handled on the track like nothing I've ever ridden since. So we made homemade widening kit for it, widened it 6 inches, lowered it 6 inches. I made this sway bar for it with independent rear suspension and being 6 inches wider. This thing on the track was like a cat on a rug with his claws out. It just stuck like crazy. It's too bad that it fell apart. I still have this sway bar. If anybody is thinking they want a sway bar, let me know when you can have it. So once we gave up on the Polaris, I took this tank, we started making aluminum brackets for it to fit on the back of a Raptor. So here it looks all nice. This is about 2009, or 2012, first fitted on the back of a Raptor. And this is where all our problems started with the tank. The quad, reliable, no problems. The tank, not so reliable. We lost the tank 3 times during races because the grab bars or the rear bar would break. Here's one of the bars that we've modified, made stiffer, added all kinds of gussets and strengthened it, welded all kinds of pieces on, but they just kept breaking. So eventually we figured out how to make a grab bar strong enough to hold the tank. And I should say that we've never actually filled the tank. We figured out 16 liters on the back is a total waste of time. Nobody can ride full out that long. You get tired and you ride slower, and you might as well pit and let somebody else get on. So it's too much work to make a tank smaller. So we never fill this more than half full anyways. It's just a big box on the back. But the problem with a conventional sport quad is you have the swing arm. So they don't have rear racks for a reason. They're meant to haul the weight on the seat, not way back here. So these 2 bolts support the whole rear subframe, and that's a whole lot of leverage. That's like 3 feet of cantilever to the frame. So what we found kept happening, you put on a barbecue loving, fast talking racer, and he likes to sit near the back of the seat. That extra 10 or 15 pounds of gas on there, and these bolts shear off in the frame. So we finished, well, first of all, we lost the tank multiple times on the track. It's got scars on it from motorbikes running it over when it left on the track. They don't like that. And we've sheared off bolts during a race, you always know what happens when the seat comes loose because the whole subframe drops down, the exhaust rips off, seat comes loose, the airbox intake pulls off. Quad's not happy. So then we finished more than one race with ratchet straps holding the frame together. When the tank falls off, Quad's not very happy. We finished more than one race using ratchet straps to hold the subframe together because the bolts sheared off. The exhaust on this side is still on the other side, actually after this race, the exhaust we had to go find it on the lake. Wasn't a good end. We finished the race, but it's all because of that extra weight on the tank on the back.
I think actually we technically sent somebody with a snowmobile to go pick up parts.
Yeah. So we figured the answer was that these bolts see too much load. So we built these homemade brackets to support the subframe and transfer the load. The shear stress on these bolts is too much. So we transfer the load from this bolt to support the subframe better and against the lower part of the main frame to help support the load. Well, that worked great, but what tends to happen is the next weakest link was the subframe itself. So here's the rear subframe of a stock Raptor, and when you transfer the load from the frame bolts to the subframe, here's what happens. So this is all because of the tank on the back. So now we're in a real predicament. We got a busted subframe. Yamaha subframes aren't cheap. So we found a guy, we were lucky. There's one guy in the US that makes steel frames, McNasty Customs. We contacted him, he sold us a frame. We had to do some modifications to it to fit it on the quad because of our tank. And we still wanted to put the homemade supporting brackets on it. So we fit those brackets on, fit the frame on. So now, 2019, 10 years after I built this tank, we think it's finally reliable. Hopefully it stays on.
We've got to do a little bit of testing.
If anybody asks me now at this point, if you need a rear tank, I would say your stock tank is good for 1 hour of hard riding. You're probably not going to be able to go hard for more than an hour, so just stick with the stock tank and come in and pit. We've had this thing for too long to give up on it at this point, so we'll keep it on here. But if I was starting over again, I don't think I'd bother with it.